Subcommittee here. My name's Chris Hill. I'm chairing the committee. I'm a Golden Bay Ward councillor and I chair the Environment and Regulatory Committee. We're going to open the meeting with karakia. He karakia tātou, whakatakata hau ki te uru, whakatakata hau ki te tonga, kia mā kina ki uta, kia mā taratara ki tai, e he aki ana te atakura, he tio, he huka, he hauhu, a ti hei mauri ora. We'll do Bruce, if you'd like to come forward, and I think you've got some people speaking alongside you, and I just suggest that you all sit there together. If you'd like to come forward, if you're someone who's going to be speaking. Sure. So I think it's good if we do a round of introductions, so you know who's in the room, and you've heard from me, so maybe Shannon.
Kia ora, I'm Shannon Green. I'm the team leader for regulatory support, and so I manage the administration side of the regulatory support function, and I was the decision maker in this case.
I'm Kelsey McLean, Governance Advisor.
Mailing, Richmond Ward Councillor, Chair of the Policy and Strategy Committee.
Hello and welcome everybody. I'm Mike Killenmutz, Waimea Ward, Waimea Military Ward.
When you speak, just press the button on the speaker there, and if it's going red, it'll work.
Right, thanks, Madam Chair. Don't intend to do much talking.
If you'd like to introduce yourself.
I'm sorry, my name is Richard Griffin. I'm a former neighbour.
And then if you turn it off, because if there's too many on at the same time, they don't work. There we go.
Bruce Struthers, I'm Elsie's owner.
Annie Costa from Ruby Bay.
Derek Fall, former neighbour of Bruce Struthers.
Thank you. And this meeting is being recorded, and this is the case for all our council meetings, and we've got some people on Zoom, including media. So I think it's just good to be alert to know that whatever we say in here can appear in the paper. So it's not to caution you about that, but just the reality of it. Sometimes people don't realise and are a bit surprised when an article is produced and there they are. So I'll just run through the process of how this happens today. So the three of us are the panel members, so we make the decision. And these are staff supporting the process. So we start off with Bruce, with you making a statement that you want to make, and you've got some folk there too who are going to speak alongside you. Then after that, Shannon will speak on behalf of the regulatory support position, and then you'll have a right of reply after that. And at any time during the process, we can ask questions. So that's of all of you that want to speak. And then we'll adjourn, and that's where we'll go into a sort of deliberations process and make our decision about whether the classification is upheld or overturned or rescinded. And then we'll reconvene the meeting. So when we go into that process, then we ask that you leave the room. So we do that here amongst ourselves. And then when we reconvene, you're welcome to come back in if you want to. You don't have to, but if you want to come back in and hear the decision, then we'll move a resolution at that point with the decision. And you'll know that the decision, so you would have received a copy of the report, and you know that the resolution is that we will receive the appeal report and either uphold the menacing classification or rescind the menacing classification. And And then there would be a formal notifying of you of the decision as soon as possible afterwards. How's that? Is that all clear? Great.
One thing, Chair. I'm picking up a lot of ambient noise from the open door, and that might have an effect on the quality of the recording. Could I possibly close it?
Sure. Thanks, Kelsey. So over to you, Bruce, to make your statement to us.
Thank you very much for hearing me. I'm Bruce Struthers. I'll give you a short version of my appeal of this classification. 1, the Animal Control or Dog Control Act is vague and unenforceable. 2, Section 33A does not apply to Elsie. 3, I can prove that. 4, Elsie does not fall into Schedule 4. 5, Elsie is not aggressive. 6, I can prove that. 7, your new enforcement agency working on their first enforcement action, A, got it wrong many times. B, relied on a self-described hysterical dog owner who believes that control of her dog does not apply to her. C, she also expects Tasman District Council to be a bill collector for her. Now to the more formal part of the presentation. I hope you haven't stopped listening after that. This hearing is being held to consider an enforcement action under the Dog Control Act of 1996. The section of the law relevant to this hearing is Section 33A of the Dog Control Act of 1996. Specifically, the territorial authority that you may classify a dog as menacing. This section applies to a dog that has not been classified as a dangerous dog under Section 31, but a territorial authority considers may pose a risk of threat to any person, stock, poultry, domestic animal, or protected wildlife because of 1, any observed or reported behavior of the dog, or 2, any characteristic typically associated with this dog's breed or type. And Section 33C, dogs belonging to a breed or type listed in Schedule 4, classified to be menacing, the territorial authority must, for the purpose of Section 33E1A, classify as menacing any dog that the territorial authority has reasonable grounds to believe belongs wholly or predominantly to one or more breeds or types listed in Schedule 4. So I've been doing my reading and I don't want to belabor. You know this, you've been involved in multiple hearings about this very same point. In law, words matter, as enforcement rests on the subtleties of interpretation of a few key words. The regulatory support team leader has advised the subcommittee that 4.4 Elsie also meets Section 33C, where we believe American Staffordshire Terrier to be American Pit Bull Terrier type of dog and should be classified as menacing. Schedule 4 of this act enumerates 4 breeds and 1 type of dog subject to a ban on importation and muzzling. The word type is not defined in this or any other law. If one concludes that the meaning of type was a collection of breeds, the American Pit Bull Terrier type are not explicitly called out in the law, nor is an authority defining what characteristics an animal would include them in a recognized breed. The lack of precision of language in Schedule 4 places a burden on you, the territorial authority. The authority must distinguish between breeds the dog breeding associations themselves cannot completely agree upon. The Dog Control Statistics spreadsheet, which relies on the National Dog Database maintained by the Department of Internal Affairs, enumerates dogs by pure breed or mixed and separates the American Pit Bull Terrier from the American Staffordshire Terrier in reporting population. There are a few hundred of both breeds listed for Tasman District. The United Kennel Club and American Dog Breeders Association recognize the American Pit Bull Terrier as a breed, not a type. The American Kennel Club recognizes two distinct breeds, the American Bulldog and the American Staffordshire Terrier. The American Dog Breeders Association in particular focuses on the differences between breeds that share a common origin, but have been refined through selective breeding to exhibit distinct characteristics. I'll give you the speaker's notes. They have footnotes, you have the references, but I believe that Kel has provided a lot of those to you. It's a lot of reading. I'm sorry about that. Elsie is a mixed breed, including American Staffordshire Terrier and American Eskimo Dog, according to the rescue organization we adopted her from. She has no papers from any breeding association and is not a pure breed. This ambiguity does not grant the regulatory support organization a license to define what breeds belong to a type and what mixture of breeds Elsie may fall into, based exclusively on a few photographs, which I, by the way, supplied, and the account of Barbara Glass, who in her statements categorizes herself as hysterical. She says, and this is from her written statement, I call that type of dog a pig dog, usually bred and trained as hunting dogs, big bulldog face with strong, wide jaws, short hair, and strongly built, solid body. I would say medium to large in size, brindled color, mostly brown to black. I didn't notice their sex. The telephone notes taken by Animal Control Officer Sandy Vale include this description by Ms. Glass. Pit bull dogs, heavily jowled, associated with Maori hunters. Very solid, like a bulldog build. Brindle, second dog, same breed, heavily faced, brindley brown color. The notes do not distinguish between the accused Elsie and the bystander Raz, but I'd like you to see this photograph of the two of them together. And this. And this. And most importantly, this, where they are sharing bones in close proximity to each other, which speaks to their temperament. I described Elsie as an American Staffordshire Terrier when I first registered in 2018 upon arrival to New Zealand. Other than that voluntary statement, Tasman District Council has no evidence of what breed or type Elsie is. If the breed declaration automatically assigns her characterization as menacing, I rescind that declaration and state she is a mixed terrier breed. I'd point out, and I wanted to save this for later, I registered every year she's been here. I've said the same thing. The Animal Control Organization had 6 opportunities to declare her as menacing based on her declared breed type. They have not. Section 30 of the 30A of the Dog Control Act defines a prohibition on import of dogs listed in Schedule 4. We adopted Elsie from a kill shelter in California. That means she would have been killed if she had not been adopted. And she lived with us in Seattle, Washington, where there are more dogs than children, and is ranked by the best city in the world for dogs by US Today. Before we seriously considered moving to New Zealand, we researched the requirements to bring our dogs with us. I reached out to the animal imports team within the Ministry of Primary Industries on April 12, 2017, asking if we would be able to import a Staffordshire Terrier and Eskimo dog mix into New Zealand. The response received April 18, 2017 was, there should not be any issue with importing a Staffy mix. However, we advise you to consult with your exporting veterinarian as they will be signing the breed declaration, which I hope you have seen. To bring Elsie into New Zealand, we were required to engage in a year-long program of vaccinations, health inspections, and finally a breed declaration submitted by us and by her veterinarian who'd had 1 year of treating her for the express purpose of import. Elsie and her dog Domingo were trucked from Seattle to San Francisco because United Airlines had just killed the bulldog by putting it in the overhead bin so that they could not fly dogs, flown to Auckland, kept in a 10-day quarantine, and finally flown from Auckland to Nelson Airport, where New Zealand Air shipped one of the dogs and not the other, and we had to wait for the next flight from Auckland to see our dog. The logistics were handled by Pet Relocation Services, an agency specializing in the move of dogs from the United States to New Zealand, Australia, and Fiji. The relocation manager received assurance from New Zealand Customs and the Ministry of Primary Industries that Elsie could be imported. Copies of the paperwork required by New Zealand Customs and accepted for import by MPI are provided. I hope you got them. If not, I can provide them to you. Please read carefully what a qualified veterinarian with over a year of pre-transit treatment said about the breed of the two animals, which was basically, she could not say with absolute authority that Elsie was one of the proscribed breeds or types. That's the declaration that came from MPI. Animal Control Officer Sandy Vale received 2 verbal and 3 written descriptions of the reported incident. Sorry, I skipped. Under reported behavior. It is the opinion of staff that the reported behavior of Elsie Kala warrants the imposition of the menacing classification. I'd like to emphasize reported and opinion. The Animal Control Officer received 2 verbal and 3 written descriptions of the reported incident. Each dog owner provided their recollections. There were no other human witnesses to the actual event, and no witnesses after the event would come forward. The dogs aren't talking. Sienna's owner, Barbara Glass, in her written statement to Sandy Vale sent October 10th, 2024, states, quote, I have poor hearing despite hearing aids and couldn't make out what he was saying. Close quote. Quote, I managed to grab her, Sienna, and pull her back under me. Sienna was squealing with distress and squirming to get away. I appreciate he was concerned at my hysteria, but I couldn't relax. A kind gentleman helped me to my feet as I couldn't get up from the shock and distress. I have encountered Bruce and his dogs before on Pomona Road. I have a different perspective of these same events and have described the events in my statements to Officer Vale. In particular, the hysteria that Ms. Glass admits to increased the intensity of the incident and unnerved the dogs, owners, and neighbors within a block of the incident who came to understand what the half-hour straight screaming was resulting from. Sienna was restrained by the screaming Miss Glass and struggling to get away. I've done that myself when I've tried to capture strays. I almost had my chest ripped out from the rear paws of that dog. Could Sienna have scratched Ms. Glass with her rear claws to get away? The kindly gentleman was Jill Bartlett, a female neighbor 3 doors away. Elsie has brindle markings and is not a pig dog. Raz, who I adopted from Tasman Pound, was a pig dog who was caught loose at least two times and taken away from his owner. When we got him, he had black scars around his neck from being tied with number 8 wire. Elsie is brindle, not a pig dog. Raz is a white retriever type dog with red spots resembling the coat of an English setter. He was a pig dog and has several black scars around his lower jaws, neck, and chest to prove his service as a pig dog. If Ms. Glass did encounter my dogs before, why did she not immediately put a lead on Sienna immediately upon seeing us? My recollection of our encounter on Pomona is radically different. The incident had occurred. Weeks after the incident, I drove by Sienna and Ms. Glass and another woman on the intersection of Pomona Road and Crusader Drive. I've said in my written statement what Pomona Road looks like, how it's full of curves, how it's very narrow and a dangerous place for anyone who isn't in a motor vehicle to be. Elsie barked at Sienna from the car, but did not snarl. Was this incident an attack or an accident? My contention is it was an accident waiting to happen and could have happened to any of the responsible dog owners on the street. If Sienna continues to roam free, an expected and foreseen event will be that she will encounter another dog or automobile that will not be as tolerant of this stray. Let me be clear, the incident of October 7th was an accident. The legal definition of an accident is an unforeseeable and unexpected turn of events that causes loss in value, injury, and increased liabilities. The event is not deliberately caused and is not inevitable, referred to incident. The form I was sent from Animal Control to respond to asked me to provide the description of the incident with as much detail as you can remember. I provided 2 of those. One before and one after a deadline that I just became aware of in the report from Animal Control that you received a week ago. I did not know when that deadline was, just that my second report applying the Animal Control Act or Dog Control Act to Sienna's behavior was after an unspecified deadline and not considered. I received no acknowledgement of my second report until I asked about it when this meeting was about to be scheduled. I would point out that I received an outreach to schedule the meeting within 2 hours after categorizing melanoma as a development as a melanoma in a previous council meeting. I got to ask, was Elsie's behavior aggressive or defensive? American Staffordshire Terriers are the result of generations of breeding and became popular as family dogs in the 1930s. Their positive breed traits, according to the American Kennel Club, include affectionate with family, openness to strangers, good watchdogs, and have a protective nature. This is reinforced by other sources comparing dog breeds. They're on the internet, so they're not as reliable as the Kennel Club, but still. American Staffordshire Terriers have a strong protective instinct. They are brave and will go to great lengths to protect their family and home. This protective nature can provide an added sense of security knowing your pet is always on the alert and ready to act if needed. In fact, their guarding instincts are usually coupled with a keen sense of when it is appropriate to be defensive. As a result, they are less likely to act out without good reason. Elsie spends most of her inside day at the window by my wife's office, where Barbara Glass frequently walked Sienna by without a lead. She would also have Sienna stop in front of the window and listen to Elsie bark. My wife has provided a description of those encounters where Elsie is simply protecting her home and a family behind a window. When Barbara Glass walked on Carepo Road with Sienna, with no lead and no verbal control of her dog, some interaction would occur when they met with any other dog on a lead. Ms. Glass put Sienna on a lead after I caught her attention, but did not control Sienna on a tight lead. Sienna had a loose lead. Sienna immediately rushed towards my seated and leashed dogs on the opposite side of the road from Ms. Glass. Elsie interpreted that as an attack, not a friendly advance. As retired veterinary Todd Field, who showed up in the neighborhood in response to the screaming, said as I walked away with Elsie, "Dogs will be dogs." A responsible dog owner would be aware of all potential interactions and not put their dog in danger. To date, Ms. Glass and her friend continue to walk Sienna unrestrained, jeopardizing the welfare of this animal. The events of October 7th, 2024 show why it is important for dog owners to take full responsibility for their animals, just as licensed drivers take full responsibility for their motor vehicle. A muzzle will not stop a dog from biting. A provocation from another uncontrolled dog, used to controlling and disregarding its owner, will ensure another canine confrontation. Dogs don't have words to settle territorial disputes or perceived threats. An animal control officer with training in canine behavior, as Sandy Vale took in 2008, should know what causes, quote, incidents. If any of you have been bitten by a dog, as I have twice, and Councillor Malling is on record as saying he has, you should ask, what was going on between the dogs when I interceded? My first bite was inflicted by a Doberman Pinscher when I tried to pull it off a Golden Retriever in a fight. The bite is still here. My second bite was delivered by a poodle that was never trained or exercised, left home alone most of its life, and continually found wandering in our neighborhood. I was bitten when I attempted to put a collar on the poodle to take it for a much needed walk. On October 11th, a Facebook post asking for the owner of a lost dog to come forward was posted on the Mapua community site, Facebook community site. Sorry, I don't have it to show you. Okay. Thank you. I thought the lost dog looked like Sienna. While walking Raz on Wednesday, May 21st, 2025, I came across Sienna running on Crusader Drive. I took photographs of a woman walking the same direction as Sienna, but there was no lead or collar securing Sienna. And I believe these have been made available to you. While walking Raz on on Saturday, May 24th, 2025, I was walking up Pomona Road with Raz and encountered the same woman, not Ms. Glass, walking down the hill at 45 Pomona Road. This is a blind curve, one of many on this road. I immediately had Raz sit down and remain stationary on his lead and collar. The woman reached for Sienna's lead, which immediately came loose from the collar, and Sienna proceeded down the hill. The woman walked 15 meters before she was able to catch Sienna and re-secure the lead. Good thing, because right past that is a bunch of whippets who also are very aggressively protecting their property. Why is a pattern of irresponsible dog ownership by Barbara Glass resulting in my dog being classified as menacing? Regulatory support has minimized the adverse consequences of upholding the menacing dog classification to, quote, additional requirements for Bruce Struthers. Christchurch City Council has listened and offered reduced annual registration fees for responsible dog owners. They do not allow owners of a dog classified as menacing to apply for this status. Menacing dogs are registered with a national database, so this stigma would follow Elsie wherever she goes in New Zealand and prevent her owner from applying as a responsible dog owner. In their position on safe dogs, New Zealand Veterinary Association has declared that breed-specific legislation does not work, and a focus on responsible dog ownership should be applied by territorial authorities. I asked the subcommittee to listen to the opinion of the professionals who've dedicated their lives to animal welfare and experience all breeds in all situations. Please do not uphold this unjustified classification.
Do you have any questions?
Got a couple.
Sure.
So, Bruce, good for you to be here today. So, first of all, I'm aware that she's a Staffordshire Terrier, right? And there are a lot of Staffordshire Terriers around Tasman. Okay. I note in your statement that you put in, the first statement that you did on the 7th of October, time is 3:30, you said in there, you said, please put your dog on a lead. I cannot guarantee my dog will behave. That's what you've written.
Yes.
So had your dog misbehaved before?
No.
Right. And the other question is, I note in here in your statement as well, you said you put your dog in a muzzle. Your dog was wearing a muzzle?
Yes, unfortunately, I didn't bring it with me. So it's basically a guide. As you might know, Staffordshires are powerful dogs. I actually double leash her. I have a harness, which has a handle on it where I can stop her from going anywhere. And I have, it's sort of like it's not a muzzle like that. It's sort of straps which allow me to point her in the right direction so she doesn't rush off to the bushes to pee she walks straight ahead. So it's kind of like a steering mechanism.
But I'm just reading from your statement. It says, I put a muzzle on her immediately to discourage this behaviour.
Yeah,
That's in your statement.
I can go get it while the other speakers.
No, I don't need it. I just
Yeah.
need you to acknowledge that you did put a muzzle on her for this day.
Yes,
So is it a bit like I've seen halties where
it's a halter. Yes, and that's how I walk her, with that halter, so I can steer her. It
closes the
bothers
jaw?
them. It closes their jaw, and it lets them gently know which direction you want to go. That's why I call it a steering mechanism. The harness she has is where I have full control over where she goes and how fast she goes.
But the harness doesn't give you control over the head, as I understand it.
Just the direction.
Just the direction. Okay, thank you.
Councillor Colomoth, do you have any questions?
Thank you. Yes, through the chair. As always, a very well articulated discussion there. Well done. Thank you. Barbara Glass. I've got this photograph here of Rusto. Is that not Barbara Glass? It's somebody else.
It is not. Looking at her face and having seen Barbara's, I think they might be related, but that's all I know.
So would you say that the dog was under voice control as opposed to on a lead?
No. The first thing.
Are you speaking about Sienna or Elsie? So what's on the table here is
I'm talking about Sienna. The poodle?
No, Sienna took off. She was not listening to anyone.
Okay. Then you mentioned just before in your statement that you can still bite through a muzzle. Now I'm confusing what a muzzle is and what you've got on Elsie. A muzzle to me is a wire mesh frame round in front of it, and that's not what you were saying here.
Correct. More like a harness, or what word did you use, Councillor Mellon?
It's called a halty.
Halty.
Yeah. They have them for horses, but they have them for dogs. I've had one for my own dogs.
Again,
You pull on it and it closes the jaw, and you control the head of your dog. They're quite common.
Yeah.
So the question there for me is that if this halty was on and Elsie hadn't thrown it, that she wouldn't have been able to open her jaw. Is that correct? I'm learning here.
They're very agile and they're very strong. And when she perceived a threat, she wiggled out of that.
Let me think about that. Thank you.
Again, the halty.
I've got a couple of questions, Bruce. So was Elsie on a you had a hold of the lead of Elsie.
Yeah.
She was sitting beside you, you're sitting your stomach, you're sitting by your feet, but you had a hold of the lead or whatever's on the
Consider Annie to be Elsie and Derek to be Raz.
I just want to know whether
They
you
were
had a hold
sitting
of the
down.
lead, Bruce.
They were seated on leads.
Did
next
you have a
to me
hold of the
standing.
lead? I've got a really
Yes.
simple question.
Yes.
You had a hold of it. So when you say that Elsie bolted towards Sienna, how did you get from having a hold of your dog in the lead and the dog's able to bolt away?
She's very strong and she's very agile, and she got out of that halty.
So she became unrestrained, essentially. She had to have been if she's then free to.
Yeah. She was sitting, then she wasn't. So she got unrestrained.
Yeah, so you hold of it and she broke away and So because you got a big focus here on Mrs. Glass and her dog and what they were doing and what they do now, and you've said very little actually around your dog bolting towards the other dog and attacking the dog.
I would
So
hope
you're saying that that didn't happen. This was an accident, and actually there was no attack from your dog to Sienna.
I'd ask you to reconsider what I said about aggressive versus defensive.
Yeah, and defence would include bolting towards another dog would be a defence.
In her dog mind, yes.
That's from Bruce, thank you. It's a formal hearing here, thank you. Okay, I mean, because this is the whole part of the picture you've left out. So we rely on what you've written. Yeah, okay. Any other questions? Okay, so if other people here, you've got something to say, each of you? Is there? Yep. And can I just, if when you each speak, can you let me know whether you witnessed the incident or not? And in that case, what's the basis of what you're letting us know about? Thank you.
Yes, I'm not here to comment on the incident itself. I was not there. I was not involved, but I can comment on the behaviour of Elsie, generally speaking, because I'm a frequent visitor to the Struthers household. And even at the beginning, when we first met and befriended the Struthers, Elsie was never aggressive, was never menacing. She was boisterous, as was Raz, but never menacing. And of course, as they got to know us better, they were still boisterous, but excited to see us rather than anything else. And I've never experienced menacing behaviour from Elsie.
What then do you make of what's happened? Because it's a very different situation, isn't it? You're sitting in someone's road with the dog.
As I said, I wasn't
your friends.
involved and I wasn't a spectator to it. I can only read what has been written, and I can only testify from my own experience of the dog. Nothing else.
Okay, thank you. Somebody else?
Yes. Thank you, Madam Chair. I can only speak to the character of both the owners and the dogs. I wasn't privy to the attack or otherwise from either side, but I do know these animals very well. For the last 8 years, I know them on a daily basis. I've had a hunt-away followed by a Springer Spaniel in the same street for 16 years. Only recently, last week, did we move out into town. It's not relevant. In my experience, and I walk past with my dog and often my cat, who would follow religiously behind, past the house. The dogs on occasions would bark, dogs on occasion would be outside, but even the cat looked sideways at them and they'd back off. These are animals. I'm sorry?
Could you just
Sorry?
yeah,
I apologize.
thank you.
The truth is, I've watched these animals for the last 8 years. Since the person arrived in the street, I've gone past his house with my dog, and as I say, my cat, my two dogs, knocked together, one after the other. The Huntaway died, the Springer Spaniel died, cat stayed on. But point is, never once was there any threat from these two dogs, Bruce's, and particularly Elsie. Never once did they even cross the barrier between the roadway and the house, and often I'd come into the house with the animals. Both the dogs would look sideways, but they were always extraordinarily friendly to me, extraordinarily friendly to the cat, and extraordinarily friendly to my dog. This went on, as I say, for 8 years. The truth is, these people are extraordinarily responsible as owners. I've never seen anyone look after animals to such a degree. They are part of the family. They are constantly with them. They are on the beach with them. I've never seen any bad behaviour from them. By the same token, the dogs themselves relate very easily to strangers. I've walked with my wife and other friends. I've never looked sideways at them at any degree at all. Always come up wagging their tails, regularly sit on my feet. These are not angry dogs. These are not badly behaved dogs. These are not dogs that have been challenged in recent years. They have an unfortunate past, both of them. But these are dogs that respect their space, respect the people they meet, as do both of their owners. It's a very happy street. It's a street that has virtually an animal in every house. And over the 15, 16 years I've been there, not once have we had an incident. This was the first, and I hope the last one. I can't tell you what happened because I wasn't there, but I can tell you that both the owners and the dogs are exemplary, more so than, dare I say, my dog. I had to way I would regularly jump the fence, but I was always on his tail. People live in that street with their dogs and cats all day. There's never an empty house. It's a little Eden for these animals. This has not occurred before. This attack or otherwise has not occurred before. And I think it's almost impossible to suggest who was at fault. Certainly I wouldn't take that step, but whoever was at fault, it didn't demonstrate in any way what you call a menacing dog. They're not menacing dogs. And that's personal experience. And the owners, as I say, are gentle people, not only respect their dogs, but look after them in relation to everybody else in the street. That's the best I can do.
Councillor Kinamont, you've got a question?
I have a question for Mr. Griffin.
Sure.
Oh, I haven't, sorry, but you reminded me of a question I had before for Mr. Struthers. When you got these two dogs from the pound, they were going to be destroyed if you didn't pick them up. If that's no, from Bruce. Sorry, sorry. When you picked the dogs up from the pound, how old were they? And what methods did you have to employ to get them to be so happy and friendly? Because I would have thought a dog from a pound has got aggressive issues, has got a lack of relationship issues. So can you give me a bit of a feedback on what it's like in the early days?
Certainly. Okay, first of all, I've owned 10 dogs over 50 years. Every one of them has been a rescue. Elsie, we had friends who would foster dogs. They worked with rescue organizations. They would keep dogs in their homes to socialize them with lots of other dogs. And then they would have someone adopt them. Elsie was one of those dogs. We got her when she was a year old. I worked from home since 2012. My wife has worked from home since 1985. We're always there. As Derek and Richard can attest, we will arrange our social engagements around whether or not it's convenient for the dogs. They're always with us. We also have a strategy of there's always two dogs in the house because sometimes they need time away from humans and with dogs. So that's how they became who they were. Raz, well, he had a YouTube video hosted by the Tasman District Pound auxiliary site with a country song talking about his dog. Sometimes you got to put behind old ways. That was Raz, and that's what attracted us to Raz. John here handed him over to us. Before that, we had play dates with Elsie at the beach to see that they would get along. When we made the decision they would both get along well, that was before we made the decision to bring Raz in. He was on that deck. I got down and lay next to him to let him know it was safe. It took 2 years for him not to start at closing doors. And when you would reach for him to not cringe. But once he got a constant diet of exercise and attention, and they have about 7 beds in the house, put warm places to sleep, he realized he'd finally come to the place he should be and changed in personality in that he's now expressive. You show him a lead, he's like a hunt away. He is ready to go out and run. So I'll put it this way. It was a long and methodical socialization process.
Thank you. Any other questions?
Well, I don't think Mr. Struthers answered my question.
Well, we've been going almost an hour now with this part of the hearing. So if there's something that you particularly want to know, I think was an explanation around the process. So you're asking about when they got the dogs, and what do they go through to socialise and all that. So I think Bruce has given quite a bit of outline around that. If you've got another question that's going to help you in your decision today, then I encourage you to ask it. Otherwise, we'll move to Annie and for her piece that she's going to share.
You don't need any, Carol.
Thank you.
Okay. Annie Costa, I have a long history of dog ownership, teaching obedience, all of that sort of thing for many, many years. And I'm looking for a solution for this because every day on Facebook, you see something like this. Now, I know Bruce is a responsible person who absolutely loves his dogs and wouldn't have them do anything wrong. I've been where he's been. I know how it feels. It is just awful. So in order to look at ways of maybe stopping it happening as often, in Christchurch, I was what was known as a preferred owner of a dog. And that was a questionnaire that went out. And a lot of councils do it. I've had a wee peruse through in Palmerston North and New Plymouth, and good half dozen councils on the North Island at least have this preferred owner status. It's a sprat to catch a mackerel as far as dog rangers being able to find out where all the dogs are located, because the people are offered a cheaper registration. So most people will go after something if they think it's a benefit to them. And the rangers will go around and ask a set of questions. I've got some of them here, but you can make your own up. They're pretty basic. They make sure that the property is secure, that there's no way the animal can escape or anything get in. And then they ask questions about what you feed them, who your vet is, have you ever been reported to the council, has the dog ever been in the pound, all of that kind of stuff. So you have a better idea of what animals you've got in your area, and the people think twice about being irresponsible owners if they know somebody's going to come and have a look. And the other thing is dog obedience, and I don't know if any of you know anything about dog obedience.
Annie, I'm going to pause you there. So the purpose of this part of the hearing is for you to be able to offer a perspective around the incident that's happened in terms of a part of Bruce's case around why he thinks the decision should be rescinded So that's, you're welcome to give council advice around the things that we can do around
It's not really.
dog matters, but this is the purpose of the hearing.
Okay.
And so if
Well,
you've got something to offer about supporting Bruce's idea that the decision should be rescinded, then please do that.
Well, I fully support Richard's and Richard's. Yeah. We're all dog lovers, and unfortunately, Mapua Ruby Bay at the moment seems to have an awful lot of uncontrolled animals beetling around the place. Would that be fair?
Not my experience.
Not your experience. Oh, you're lucky. Okay, you don't live on the cycleway.
Thank you. Thank you, Annie.
You're welcome.
So we're going to move now to Shannon. If you'll explain the council position and the report that you've produced, and to give the reasoning behind the classification decision. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I'll take the report as read, which I think we've already sort of stated it has been. So in this case, it was, well, in every case, we assess them on the merit of the incident itself and on the statements we received. With that, we discerned that Sienna was placed on a lead at the request of Mr. Struthers, and moved to the middle of the road. Elsie broke free, escaping the muzzle and the harness or the holding from Mr. Struthers, and was able to attack Sienna, driving the Sienna's owner, Mrs. Glass, and the dog into the ditch. Elsie was then restrained afterwards. So the classification was imposed as the menacing classification was imposed to ensure that Elsie is muzzled going forward, so that no further incidents of this nature happen again. Noting that it was as Mr. Struthers said, it was a reactive defensive, but it was still able to happen in the first place. And that the reason we went with the classification was because of the severity, the ability for Elsie to break free of the muzzling, and what we now know as a halty, but was able to break free of that, and the harness to commit the offence. We really needed to ensure under the Act the safety of other domestic animals and the public, and the muzzling's the way for us to do that.
Excuse me, Madam Chair, but as a former
No, just
chair of
pause
the
there, Richard.
SPCA,
No, can you just pause there? So this is quite a formal process, and I'm going to
Well,
ask you to
I
respect this.
understand
So
absolutely.
just pause, thank you. In fact, you could turn off your mic, would help too, thank you, because then you're less inclined to speak over me. So this is a very formal process. We've just had an hour to hear from Bruce and his supporters, including you. Yep, I'm not here to have a debate with you. And this is the time where the panel hear from staff. And we're going to ask some questions if we want to do that. Bruce will have a right of reply, and then we're going to make our decision. So this is not a place. You don't have a role here to interrupt this process.
In natural justice.
It is not your role to. I'd ask you to step up. And now just don't interrupt. Thank you. Is there anything further that you'd like to add?
So in the report, I also spoke to the Schedule 4 of the Dog Control Act, where we believe we have reasonable grounds to believe that M-Staff or American Staffordshire Terriers of the type of breed of American Pit Bull Terriers. This is reflected in other councils as well. Auckland, Wellington, Christchurch, and Dunedin all have a similar classification where they classify first, and then you can submit a DNA that shows that your dog is predominantly not that breed, and it will be removed from that classification. So that's where that was added in there as well. It's a almost universal view that American Staffordshire Terriers are of that type of breed.
Thank you. Any questions?
Just the classification that you've used, menacing, that's the lowest classification as I understand it.
Through Madam Chair, yes, it is. It's the lowest classification. It requires the least amount of management, and there's no extra fee for registration on that classification.
And I also noted in the report that the lady was bitten on the arm, from the statements that I've seen.
Through Madam Chair, yes, that was a report that we received as well.
And I've got a couple of questions. So to the point around this wasn't an attack, but an accident. What do you say to that?
With this statement and the evidence we have, I would consider it an attack. Elsie broke away from being restrained, was able to pull off her harness and commit an offence. I would consider it an attack. The victim dog, Sienna, was on a lead at the time, and was not engaged in an aggressive behaviour, and Elsie was able to break away and attack and bite.
And in terms of Bruce's point that each time that he's registered the dog through each year, that there was an opportunity each time then for Elsie to be declared a menacing dog based on that categorisation. What do you say to that?
We haven't, as a council, as a TA, we haven't actively enforced that subsection as it stands. It is something that we've started considering this year for the coming registration periods, is that we need to get on top of that and fit in with and become consistent with other councils throughout the country. That the staffs and of that type breed are also classified as menacing, unless DNA certificate is provided otherwise.
So the primary reason for the classification of menacing in this case is the attack, the dog attack, causing wound, and the outcome of the classification is that Elsie would then need to be muzzled, which would ensure that doesn't happen again. Is that fair?
That's absolutely fair. That's what I'm
saying is that a fair assessment from me of your reasoning for this?
Yes. So the classification was issued under 33(1)(a)(1), I think it is, which is of observed behaviour. As we didn't classify Elsie under the breed, we classified under observed reported behaviour.
Yeah. Yes. And is it correct that when a dog attacks or bites another dog or a person, that there's an automatic classification of menacing under the Act?
Yes, if we have reasonable grounds to believe that an offence was committed, then yes, we classify.
Yeah. Okay. Any yes?
You through you, Madam Chair. In your opinion, a halty is not a muzzle, or it is a muzzle?
In my opinion, it is not a muzzle.
Anything further? No. So Bruce, this is your time to have a right of reply. So we've listened. We've listened very carefully to what you've said. We've read all the documentation you've provided. So this is really a time, I think, to make responses to what Shannon's brought forward, or if there's anything new that you think hasn't been expressed so far.
Thank you very much. And if I had been represented by counsel, I think they would have stopped you and said leading the witness in your last line of inquiry. So Shannon has been extremely polite and accommodating through this entire process, and I appreciate that. But it's time for the muzzle to come off. He's relatively new to his organization. His organization was basically built from ground up in October, when the existing subcontractor's contract was not renewed. So there was a learning process involved. An organization that was run with two and a half employees and volunteers ballooned to 6 people, all of whom had to be trained, all of whom had to get shiny new trucks, at a cost which is now showing up in the annual plan. There were some rough edges in the notification of me. I talked to Sandy Vale. One question I asked after speaking with her was, I'm not going to have to appear before Kit Malling's death panel, am I?
I'm
That-
going to stop you there, Bruce. So there's a limit to what you can do
Okay.
here, and I'm encouraging you, if you're wanting
Sure.
to, if you're wanting to convince us to rescind this decision, you'll need to focus on the key points of how come the classification was given, and what would convince us to overturn that. Now, it's just not appropriate to be speaking the way you are.
Okay, I'll take
And
that.
you've had a really good crack at this for an hour. And, I just encourage you to be precise and concise and know that that's the point of why we're here.
Thank you.
Is because you think the decision should be overturned.
Okay. I think it should be overturned because it was an organization that was learning how to do it. This was their first enforcement action. I received the notification saying that it had been mailed on such and such a date, and I had 10 days to reply. Sorry, it had been delivered on such and such a date, and I had 10 days to reply. It was delivered 3 days after that. So I had 7 days to reply to decide whether or not to appeal. I spoke to Ms. Vale. She got some of what I said, not all of what I said, and she assured me after my oral report of what happened that appearing before you would not happen. So I was completely detail oriented in my first and second written reply. The second written reply was ignored. The report from the animal control officer said that Sienna received a level 4 bite and that Ms. Glass received a level 2 bite. The only evidence that was provided was a photograph that was taken at the vets of those 2 bites. The scale at which a level is measured was not mentioned. If it is Dr. Ian Dunbar's bite scale, a level 4 is the depth of half the canine tooth of the dog inflicting the wound. Ms. Vale and everyone else from animal control has not seen this dog. The dog's teeth are not visible in the photographs. I don't know how a level 4 bite was determined, but that is a very severe bite, and that has very severe consequences for the future of that dog, according to Ian Dunbar, who's given TED Talks on animal control and how to speak dog. He's sitting next to a pit bull terrier. So he's confident that these dogs can be controlled. Ms. Vale said that $100 was offered by me to defray the veterinary expenses, and that was refused. This is incorrect. Ms. Glass did take the $100, did go to the vet, did get the dog treated for gingivitis among everything else, and presented the whole bill to me. I did not pay the bill directly because I don't know what my legal status is. And if I paid the bill, would I be admitting that I am in the wrong? I don't know. When Ms. Glass did not receive prompt payment from me, she asked Sandy Vale to go collect the bill for her. When Ms. Vale correctly said that is not their role, that there are other mechanisms to collect the money, Ms. Glass stopped at my doorstep, left a letter in my mailbox and said, animal control requires you to make this payment. So she's speaking for animal control. She also said, be it on your head if these dogs kill another dog or hurt a child. So she's not satisfied with A, the dog being in a car is sufficient practice or a protection. And she's also asking you to do more than is your role. So all of what she is saying is extremely tainted and unreliable. And I don't understand why my testimony and facts and documentation does not outweigh what she has said. The language you provided in your annual report is, it is your belief that the following occurred. Belief belongs in a church, not in a quasi-legal proceeding.
Thank you. I'll now adjourn the meeting. So I'll ask you to leave, if you want to come back in later for when we make a decision, you're very welcome to. Kelsey will let you know when that is. And those on Zoom will need to leave as well. Could go into a waiting room. Yeah, so if you're on Zoom, I think you can hear me. You'll go into a waiting room if you want to come back in. Welcome back, everybody. We reconvene the meeting, and which brings us to the place of making a decision. Here's the resolution up on the screen, and it calls on one of the panel members to move the resolution.
Through you, Madam Chair, I move the resolution to uphold the menacing classification. I do that with, you still can't take away, there was a fight, that could be an accident, but when you have an accident, there's always two sides to it, and there's a right and a wrong. So I think in this case here, whilst I've heard a lot from you, Bruce, I'm not convinced that Elsie needs a menacing classification. So I'm recommending a menacing classification.
Thank you.
And I'm happy to second that we uphold the classification. The lady was bitten on her arm, so it's a dog bite. Simple as that. And we have to be risk adverse. This could happen again. So it stops the dog biting anyone in the future.
Thank you. I'll be supporting the resolution that you've moved based on that there has been a dog bite a dog and a person, which is how come the classification gets applied under the Act from the get-go. And I haven't heard anything today that convinces me that this couldn't happen again. And it's the lowest level. I think it's the lowest level of classification that could happen. And the reason I'll support the resolution is so that Elsie is muzzled and there won't be another, there's not the potential there isn't there for another incident like this. So I'll put the resolution. All those in favour, please say aye. Right. Against, carried. Thank you. That brings us to the end of the hearing, and you'll have a formal notification sent to you, Bruce.